Yo, what is up, everybody? Oh, I love that. We caught each other off guard there, but it's okay.
Right.
We're here doing it.
Sometimes you just jump in. Sometimes you just jump in and it just happens.
Exactly. Episode 7, yo. Episode 7.
Woo! Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Getting some reviews and liking that and some feedback. People sending me a couple text messages. So I mean that's cool, man. We want to, let people know that we're, two different generations doing it up, having a conversation, father, son. You know what I'm saying? I love it. I love it.
I love it. And what are we talking about today, Pop?
Hey, we gotta roll a clip though, man.
Bro, you gotta tell them what they're talking about, and then we roll the clip.
Oh, we doing it. Okay, my bad. So we going. Hey, I'm thinking about mental health. Because that's one of the things that we do a lot of as far as prevention of and self-awareness and awareness and all that good stuff. So I wanted to talk about mental health today. So roll that clip I love.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, boy.
We doing it.
I like it. I like it. I mean, I'm interested to see what the new one comes up when we know season 2 when we do that.
They ain't ready for season 2. Me and Pop already scheming and planning some big thing for season 2. So if you're rocking with season 1, you're really gonna love season 2. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. You're really gonna love it. So
plug it.
We got it. We got to do it. But let's get into the conversation today.
Yes. So mental health, man, one of the things that a lot of people are talking about it now, and I do a lot of work in this space and have for many years actually, and just with Gen Z after COVID and all that good stuff, it's not good stuff. COVID was not good stuff. My bad.
That was hold on. There was some. I mean, there were some highlights for people in COVID. Some people did.
That's true.
Got a little reset. So there was some. It was a good medium.
It did change some things in the way that we're looking at life. So yeah, okay. So I'm all right. Okay, good. I didn't put my foot in my mouth too bad on that one.
No, you're good.
Thanks for the save. But just talking about it, and one of the things that I've been having challenges with myself more recently, and trying to figure out how to really navigate this mental health, especially with younger people, is trying to figure out how do you really tell the difference. I mean, I know the answer, but is when you're a young person or a young person in your life or a person that you care about is really having a challenge around mental health, versus them really just being lazy or lackadaisical or not really tapping into their tenacity and strength. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that with you today to see, what's your thoughts. And it's kind of how you and I would have conversations in the, in the dining room area. Sometimes I'd be like, hey man, what you think about this? So
right.
I wanted to bring that here, but maybe to set the tone a little bit. I saw this clip on TikTok, because we did that episode on TikTok. So I've been watching TikTok reels a little bit and all that stuff. So go ahead and roll this, and then let's talk about it a little bit. And because we do have some tips though, as far as what are some true warning signs and things to be aware of if somebody might be having a child. But I want to get the conversation maybe started with this. So can you roll that?
Let's do it.
Hey, take this trash out, and after that, wash the dishes.
Okay.
Hey, take the trash out, and after that, wash the dishes.
Like right now?
Yeah, right now.
They don't look that full, but I.
Hey, take that trash out, and after that, I need you to wash the dishes for me.
This trash right here?
Yeah, that trash right there, yeah.
There's nothing in it for real.
What? Just take it out. Take it out real quick.
Do I gotta do it right now? Like I was just coming down here to get something to drink.
Take the trash out. Just take it out. Run it outside. What is wrong with you?
I just feel like I've been going through a lot.
Going through a lot? You stay in your room? What? Going through what?
So you seriously want me to do it like right now? Like I have to take it out right now. It can't like nobody else could take this out?
Take the trash out right now. What's so hard?
I mean, when does the trash run? Like I have to do it now.
It don't matter when it run. Just take it out.
Shout out to my man. What is the Joan A? What was her?
Jonas B or something like that.
Let's give him a shout out on that one. You know what I'm saying? That was good. Yo, just so those that weren't able to watch it, because you're not watching this on one of our streams or whatever.
But you should. You should. You should.
Not while you're driving, though. Not while you're driving.
Okay. All right. You're right.
They might be driving right now. But it was a clip that showed this one young man who was, creating a TikTok just about the different generations and, parents reacting or telling their young one to take out the trash. And so it started from Generation X, then the millennials, then the Gen Z. So the last one part that you heard when he was talking about, I got a lot going on and do I got to really take it out right now? I would just come down and get a glass of water. That was the Gen Z generation. And it just seems like it through the generations has gotten a little bit more lengthier in explanations of why they don't want to do something, young people, compared to Gen Z when parents would say do something and you just got to be like, yes sir, yes ma'am, I got this going, all right, I'm gonna make it happen. So but the thing that got it interesting to me was the the part of saying that he's got a lot going on and almost broke down and cried up in there, right? Like, I'm just feeling overwhelmed and I can kind of understand a little bit, especially because of the way I was raised by my dad and just seeing the difference today and being a person who's a youth advocate and loves youth and trying to fully understand what is going on and what's happening. I can kind of relate a little bit to maybe some parents not understanding or feeling frustrated or not getting it. And so I've been challenged myself, even when I go into schools and I talk with parents. So I don't know. I mean, what was your take on I think that was the first or second time you've seen that since I shared it with you. But what was your take on it, though?
Well, just the topic as a whole, I think it's interesting to see how I would say right now we're in a mental health epidemic right now, right? Sure. Just seeing a whole lot of youth that are being challenged with anxiety and stress and depression and suicide, right? Suicide now is the number 2 leading cause of death between ages 14 to 24, right? Or it's even lower than that. So I think this topic is perfect to talk about. But as you're mentioning it, I think in generations prior, like I see Generation X, and like you just said, you are Generation X, so you being raised by somebody. I'm
on the cuffs, man.
Okay, my bad.
Don't tell my business, man. These people don't know me
yet. Hey, man, we gotta be honest on this pod.
Right, right. That's cool.
It's just funny because I think millennials started like when you're Gen X, you don't question authority, right? You never question your parents on why they want it to be done this way or why right now. But then you see a millennial starting to challenge a little bit, like, oh, it's not even that fool for real. Like, all right, but whatever, I'll do it. But then you see Gen Z who's like, oh, right now, like it's not even full, or like I don't even know when does it need to be taken out? Like when does the trash can really come and why, right? And a lot of parents get frustrated when their kids ask why. Me and you both are in the field, so understanding that these youth are, I'd rather have my youth, I think this is me talking and me, just my perspective. It's like, I'd rather my youth challenge authority a little bit, because if you don't have a youth that has assertiveness, then you just have a youth that's willing to do anything and everything. So how does that translate into the family dynamic into the real life, right, in the social world. So like now you have youth that are being peer pressured, and they probably give in easier because they don't challenge authority, or they don't ask
Mhm.
why, or they don't have these follow-up questions. So I think, yes, it's annoying, right? As a parent or an adult, a trusted adult, they're like, why? Or a teacher, right? Even like, because I told you to. Like, that's why. But for
Right.
Gen Z, it's like, okay, and who are you? You know what I mean? Like, and I think that goes with the whole aspect of for these youth today. I kind of agree with this statement of respect is earned, not given. And I
Mhm.
think how do you feel about that phrase? First off,
Yeah, I definitely believe that's true.
yeah,
That it does take. I mean, I like to at in the beginning. I always tell youth, even when I was at the residential facility, when they would first come in, um, and they came in with their guard up and thought that this was going to be like a juvenile detention center or maybe a low level prison. And I let them know that, hey, you're coming in here and you're starting from scratch. And so I let them know that, I let youth know that I don't have a reason not to trust you until you give me a reason to not trust you.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I like to give people the benefit of the doubt right off the bat and say
Right.
like, hey, I'm gonna trust you. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
even with my team that I have as far as employees, that's how I feel. You know what I mean? And so I think that giving youth that to me is respect,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's disrespectful to not treat people in the beginning with that openness to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I mean, and again, that also comes back to stereotypes and prejudices, right? Why some people may not want to do that, or they've been hurt in the past themselves, and are guarded and don't want to do that. I can understand where that the latter could come from. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, no, I think respect is something that is should be given, but you have to maintain that through your walk,
I,
right? So yeah, that's what
yeah.
that tip.
I've been rocking with another word rather than respect. I tell the youth that, hey, you know what? You don't have to respect me, but the least that we can do is treat each other with dignity. You know what I mean? I respect. I think dignity is like the bare minimum. Like that's the tier right below respect. So
Right.
when youth are to gain respect from youth, it means they admire your actions or admire your presence or admire you, right? Those are verbs. They like those adjectives. They like the things that you are. Dignity just tells us that, hey, I'm human, you're human, we all have value, so I should treat you as if I have value. And I feel like a lot of adults confuse the two of like, oh, you're not treating me with respect. And it's like, well, you aren't treating me with respect. Like the youth feel like they're not treating me with
Mm,
respect. So I'm going to reciprocate the energy, but I'm still going to treat you with dignity, right? For most part, I'm still going to make sure you have value, let you know that you have value still, but I can do that and still disrespect you, right?
right.
But I'm still treating you with dignity. So I think I say all that to say, just learning about how even in the field for so long now, learning how parenting styles really affect how youth feel about their mental health and if they approach their mental health in a certain way, right? Because for me, I think you did a good job at teaching me balance of, hey, I'm struggling with this. I need a mental health day or whatever the case may be. Or I need to take care of my mental health, but you also weren't so lenient to wherever I said that you were like, just coddle me per se, right? Because there
Right.
were some situations where I needed to go through those situations mentally so I like the word you said, so I can have resilience and I can develop grit, right? And I think that's where we get confused. And for me too, I think really coming from a Blaxican household is different. It's really, really different because you and mom had to work really hard to get to where you're at today. And I think you were trying to instill that hard work in me, right? So there was no such thing as a whole lot of taking days off, like a whole lot of days off, right? That wasn't a thing
True.
because you always pointed this out, just being a black man, that we're gonna have to work 10 times harder than a white person in a corporate room. Like we're gonna have to work 10 times harder. So when they get to sleep and they get to rest, like we gotta work. And I think you let that be known, and mom also let that be known, and by her mom also let it known by her actions. You let it by your words and actions. Where mom was just it's like to this day still working and grinding and doing all these amazing things. You as well, but it's just I think it's also a cultural thing, right? Where we feel like we need to keep working as Black and Mexican folks, where that's why we don't believe, like the cultures don't believe in mental health, because they're like, I've been living with anxiety and depression and stress and all my life, and look where I'm at. I got a house and I got this, but it's like, well then, but what? How are you for real? Like, how are you for real? You have all this stuff, but does it mean anything to you besides that it took you 10,000 hours to get to this point, right? So I think when we break it down and we're understanding and trying to destigmatize, I think that's what we both do in our community, just trying to destigmatize mental health, but also trying to encourage a balance of, is this a mental health problem, or are you just being lazy, or are you taking advantage of the systems that we have in place, right? Because some of the people I feel like in my field of work probably take advantage of the leniency that they have out there in the organization or behavioral health field, where we prioritize our mental health with people, and some people really do try to do that and try to stay true to the guidelines or whatever the case may be, but other people abuse that system, therefore ruining it for somebody that can actually benefit from, PTO days when they have an anxiety attack, or when they're in a depressive episode, right? Like, and those people that are doing that ruins it for the masses, right? It takes like 3 bad apples to ruin it for everybody else. So how do we find that balance? I think that's my question to you as a leader, as a CEO, as a president, El Presidente, as they call you. You know what I mean? Like, like how do you balance that as not like, forget the father figure portion for now, but as a CEO, how do you balance that with your employees?
Yeah, like I'm saying, man, it's tough for me. I'm still kind of working through it myself a little bit because, even when I did a presentation, I think it was last year, with a group over at a Mexican American Studies department. It was all throughout from the school district, and it was, I'm standing there, and I'm telling them about, allowing people and understanding that people do need to take care of their mental health and their self-care strategies that they need to put in place. But at the same time, I mean, you think about, different professions have some leniency in being able to maybe take that day, or half a day. But when you think about like teachers who are out there grinding and got like 8 periods with 30 kids per period, and if they decide like that day that they need a mental health day, how's that throw off the system? You know what I mean? Of just the way it's set up as far as schools are concerned. Now, if you run your own business, and decide to, as an entrepreneur, like, hey man, I need like, at least a half day. That's probably not going to mess up as many things because you're not impacting as many folks. Now, yes, you may have to catch up with whatever your plans are if you had plans, but it's different. So yeah, it's really interesting trying to figure out the difference between, and I like what you said, do you really need a mental health day, or are you kind of leaning in hard on the system and taking advantage of it,
Right.
or the terminology, right? And that's what tends to happen is a lot of times I don't think people understand definitions of what mental health challenge is. And I actually, to be honest, for many years didn't fully understand depression and what that meant. And because a lot of times, right, words matter. And a lot of times people will use that word, oh man, you're just depressed. And depressed is different than being sad, right? And so when we look at the clinical definition of depression, I mean, that's literally like, 5 to 7 days, up to 2 weeks, not being able to really just feeling extremely overwhelmed and sad and can't get up and can't move and don't want to, all you want to do is sleep. And I mean, that's depression, right? Now, you being sad over, a breakup, can you get depressed? Possibly,
For sure.
definitely for some
Yeah.
people, but a lot of people also aren't depressed. They're just sad.
Mm.
And there's a difference, right? And so, yeah, how do help people understand that there are young people who are going through challenges? And I think the other thing that I like to share with young people, and I have to keep it in mind also, is that, the world is different today, man. Like, and you know this better than anybody,
Yeah.
is, just the way information is coming at young people today
Mm.
is fast, man. It's a lot. It's, from misinformation to disinformation to political challenges to world issues, if people are paying attention to that. I mean, and then when we look at social media and information coming at young people just from a social standpoint, man, that's crazy. I mean, how many likes or thumbs up or hearts or
Mhm.
uh, comments or rude comments, or man, that's a lot to deal with. And I think you and I were talking about it a while back. Things that happen to young people today that may be caught on video, let's say at their school.
Mm.
Back in the day, if somebody did something stupid, right, and got caught up and it, was funny or not funny and it hurt their feelings, it would just stay literally within that school.
Right.
Now that gets posted, and now everybody, not only throughout your county, city, but now state or
Mhm.
states,
Right.
plural, right, know the mistake or stupidity or hurt or whatever that you felt. And then now you're getting comments from random folks that don't even know the full situation or what's going on. And that can wear on you,
Mhm.
you know. And even if it's even when it's something positive, right? And people
Right.
find something, what I find interesting, your sister does this a lot on a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right. There's a picture and it's like, oh, there's 5 people standing there. And it was funny because the other day, where was I? Oh man, I was I was at the play and
Okay.
these young ladies were sitting in front of me and I saw them on their phone, and what they would do is, like, there's a picture and then they like scroll in on it, you know what I mean, or pinch it out to zoom in out
Right.
in on it. And I mean, people are looking for like the littlest detail sometimes in a picture, like, again, you had a Polaroid or just a regular 4x5, picture from Walgreens or CVS. Ain't nobody getting out a microphone, excuse me, magnifying glass and like, ooh, oh, dang, you see that like little thing in the back there? Or they got that, ooh,
Mm.
look at that zit on their face. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
then people comment on it. Hey,
Right.
did you see the little dot on their nose? And you're like,
Mm.
I didn't even see the dot on their nose, right? So it's definitely different, man. And I think the other thing that you shared that I think is important is people do need to realize that we do have resiliency built within us.
Mhm.
We are able to overcome challenges, um, but you do have to train yourself in order to do that.
Mhm.
That means that you can't tap out of every challenging moment.
Right.
Sometimes you got to persevere. You gotta push through that,
Right.
because that's how you learn how to then deal with the next challenge that comes.
Mhm.
And shout out Ted Huntington, who put the Thrive program together. He and I were talking about this, and it's about, again, having some grit, but you do have to practice it. And
Right.
so if you end up not wanting to deal with challenges or go through them, and figure out how to navigate, then you will not be better off the next time.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so uh, I I brought this up just to say that I think, the wanting to talk about the topic, that there's a fine line.
Yeah.
Um, and I do believe that we as a community, especially Black and Brown, um, we do need to take a look at this. Like you were saying, that, it's within our culture not to believe
Mhm.
sometimes in mental health, or a lot of times in mental health, and we see it as a weakness,
Yeah.
but it's real.
Hmm.
It's real. And I liked what you said also, is like, even though you may have these things, and said that you persevered, but how are you
Right.
really, right? And what I'd like to add on to that, and to make it a little bit more clear, is when we say how are you, are you still treating people well?
Mm.
Are you, yelling at your kids or your friends, and you got a bad attitude, and
Mm.
you're negative about life, and are you how are you?
Right.
Right? Because of these things, and because you didn't take a moment to pause, or to meditate, um, or take time for yourself. And again, time for yourself doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a week long. I mean, it could be 15 minutes. That's fine.
Right. 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 Right.
So I mean, yeah. So
Well, I'm even thinking about the youth perspective, right? Like that's more like an adult perspective of like, um, how does self care look like for me as a 14-year-old that may be listening to this podcast, a 16-year-old who may be listening to this podcast, right? And they might have a good idea of what that might look like, but like you said, it doesn't have to be um so long, like a week long. It could be literally a 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour for yourself. Like, what are you going to do for yourself? How does that make you feel? Right. And when we talk about what are you doing for yourself, we're not talking about going to hit your vape bar, your puff bar. We're not
right,
talking about taking a shot of alcohol. We're not talking about hitting the joint or hitting a wax pen. We're talking about what are some natural things, and I'll use natural because everybody thinks marijuana is natural. If you look at it right now, it's not that natural right now, right? When we talk about the potency level, that's a whole nother conversation for later. But
right.
what are some natural things that you can do that are positive, that are going to help you be the best version of you? I think for me, just to share some of my examples, I love doing the Lego sets, man. That's one of my things that I love to do, is going to the gym, right? That's something that I like to do. It's reading. I've been getting into a lot of reading. Yes, yeah, yeah. Some of you are looking sideways because I do be reading now. And it was crazy because at high school I would have never thought to maybe read, but I noticed that reading does a lot for my imagination, and there's a lot of knowledge in that, right? And well, I feel like as we're talking, I feel like some of the youth or some people that are younger will get turned off by what we're talking about. Oh, they're trying to invalidate mental health and whatever the case may
Oh,
be. I don't think that's not our job at all. Our job is to actually advocate. But what we're advocating for is for you to find a balance, right? Of, hey, this is mentally challenging me, or is this mentally hurting me, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep,
being
yep, yep.
self-aware and letting know. But sometimes people who are having mental health challenges, such as depression, bipolar disorder,
Anxiety.
anxiety, right? They're not able
Mm,
to tell the difference, right? Or eating disorders, right? EDs as well. So like they're not able to tell the difference. But if you are in those states, and when we talk about mental health, it's just being able to respond to challenges in a healthy way, right?
yeah,
Being able to
exactly,
respond.
exactly. No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, we're definitely. I think what I've been battling with is just trying to figure out how to articulate
Yeah.
the difference between mental challenges and uh,
Disorders.
then disorder, or
Oh,
falling into a episode.
yes.
Um, and how do I explain that to folks? Because I don't want people to walk away thinking that mental having a mental health challenge or episode is weak,
Mhm.
or that it's fake, even,
Right.
because it's real. The way just the body responds, or is reacting to whatever it is you may be going through in that moment. And so I do believe that, like you were saying, some self-care strategies and taking care of our mental health. Because when we talk about mental health, I mean, how often do we take care of our physical health? You just mentioned, working out. And ever since we were in kindergarten, that's all we really learned, right? Was,
Mm,
oh, you got to work out, you got to be physical, what I'm saying, you got to exercise, you got to move, you got
mhm.
to eat healthy, and that's all for the physical,
Right.
right? But how often do we talk about what you need to do for the mental,
Mhm.
to keep that stable? And there's no trainings out there, and people get nervous more so today about us even talking about mental health, right?
Ooh, talk on it. Uh-oh.
I don't know why they're scared. You know what I mean?
Controversy, here it comes. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right. No,
yeah.
don't go there.
We'll take it.
But
We'll take it.
but is there is social emotional learning, and that has to be taught, and it has to be not necessarily only by us but by people's parents, but adults need to understand what that is and what that means and how to teach it. And the one thing that we've always talked about is that, and a lot of people out here listening will probably know this too, right? There is no book that you're given once you have a kid on how to parent. Now you can go look for some nowadays, right? Um, if you choose to, but most people don't choose to read those books. And maybe nowadays, maybe somebody will listen to a podcast, which is great, or an audio
That's
book,
me.
that's
That's me.
even better, right? But a lot of things aren't discussed within those books, even, and some are. So I don't want to take credit from some great authors out there,
Sure.
but um, but people aren't taking the opportunity to read those. So there's no really script that, and a lot of times what happens is people learn generationally how to handle things. And but the thing that's challenging about that, in my opinion, there are some principles when it comes to parenting that I believe stand today. Like I believe, and will stand over time, that are important, like having a meal with your family. The more meals that you can have with your family throughout the week, the more resilient you help your child the more you help your child tap into their resiliency. Um, Research has shown that the more meals you have with your child. Now, Matt, notice I'm not saying dinner.
Mm.
See, back in the day, right, when even prior to me, 60s, 50s, families could, eat together at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. But now everybody's schedule's so busy that they can't do that. But having a meal, that could be breakfast, that could be lunch, that could be a snack, sitting down at a table and talking with one another about what's going on for that individual, and everybody at the table having an opportunity to share what is going on for themselves. That's where you get to learn a little bit about your family, and you get
Yeah.
to talk about your values. You get to talk about how things are impacting people. But we get so busy nowadays that we don't get opportunity to even do that, right?
Yeah.
Or and again, having a meal together, yeah, you can do it at McDonald's, or you can do it Chick-fil-A, or whatever, or Los Betos, but how can you have it maybe in a at your home, where you can have the undivided attention of the individuals around. And so just thinking about mental health and how important it is, and what are the things that help it, um, is, like you're saying, the self-care strategies, and
Right.
teaching young people to think about that now, and teaching our young people to slow down for a minute,
Yeah.
just to stop for a second, put the phone down. Adults, put the phone down and just chill. A quick story. One of the things I used to love, man, about um, you know, living overseas and then coming back to the States for school. During breaks, I would sometimes go back to Saudi, and it was some of the times I used to like to go is when everybody else wasn't going, because there were certain times when all my Aramco brat friends would be going back, and we'd all kind of meet up in New York, JFK, and fly back through Amsterdam and or London and yada yada. But there were some times where we had like a little bit of a different schedule, and at my school, and so I would go back on an odd time, if you will, and I'd go by myself. Um, and it was kind of boring, but you know what I really appreciated? It gave me time to myself to,
Mm.
like you were saying, read a book or reflect about how I thought about that last semester and what I want to do differently about it. How do I want to adjust some of the things that I did or didn't do? it reminded me, it was time really to myself and not trying to, when I was flying back with everybody else, like trying to stay engaged with them, make sure that they were all right. Are we having a good time? Where are we going next? Is that, it was just time to myself, you know what I mean? And so I think if young people can learn that now, because they are so busy, the majority of them, and those of you that are not busy is good, but should not be not so busy that you're not doing anything and you're just sitting on the couch, or that's not
Right.
good either. But yeah, just those self-care strategies. And one of the things that I would share is, looking at what might be some, let's share some of the things that, people may want to look out for.
Yeah.
Um, you know, that might be a sign that they may be truly going through a mental health episode and or challenge, is, isolating oneself, not wanting to engage with people at all. Now, what makes this one difficult is when you have teenagers,
Right.
right? Because that's just part of the adolescent development, right? And wanting to, I don't want to be with my parents. They suck, not cool at all. You never said that though.
Right. Right.
Because we kept it real up in here, man. But anyway, isolating oneself, right? That's one of them. The other thing I would share, and you can share some of the other ones, is
For sure.
risk-taking behaviors. Risk-taking behaviors that can harm oneself.
Right.
There's oh dang, what's that Netflix show? Gina and Georgina. Yeah, it's a teenager. But she ends up cutting.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
And those are risk-taking behaviors. Sometimes
Right.
and youth, when they're doing that, are not necessarily trying to kill themselves. If they're cutting necessarily, they could be. Most are trying to just get rid of the pain. They want to feel a different type of pain than the emotional
Yeah.
that they're feeling. So risk-taking behaviors. And so you got to also play that out, right? Because when I watch what is it, the extreme games,
Okay.
sometimes I'm like, dang, those some 15-year-old, there's some risky behavior. Riding these motorcycles or those skateboards and those bikes, man, on those tubes and going like 50 feet in the air or whatever, 60, 100 feet. Yeah, but that is not, that's what they like to do.
Right.
Right.
They practice those. Yeah.
So it's consistent. It's not something out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
It's really what they want, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, what might be some other things that you could think of?
Overwhelming fear, right? Worried of feeling like the little things give them a lot of fear, right? Maybe it's and this can coincide with anxiety. Maybe it's talking to somebody at the cash register, right? Feeling overwhelmed with fear of like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to do this, I can't talk, I don't want to speak, right? Or maybe it's not wanting to leave the room anymore, right? And oh man, I think this is heartbreaking for me to read these two: overwhelming fear and intense worries, right? Intense worries. Right now, we are in a state, and I don't know why, but this heavy on my heart, just talking about guns right now, right? And I'm hearing what's happening out in Tennessee. And I remember talking to one youth, and he got suspended indefinitely or expelled from school because he brought a gun on campus, right? They brought a gun on campus. And well, I'm mentoring him and helping him through this and trying to get his perspective. And one of the things he mentioned to me was that I brought the gun to school with me because I felt unsafe. I felt unsafe to be in school, right? So that intense worries, that living in that fight or flight response, right, is real. And that was the only thing at that time where he thought that this made sense. Like, this is happening on campuses, this is happening on school grounds. Yeah. I should strap up as well, right? And this is something that people are like, well, how are you bringing gun violence in this and mental health? Because our youth are afraid, right? And some of that fear can paralyze those youth, because now when they're in school, they're not worried about grades right now. They're worried about is somebody gonna bust through this door right now and shoot me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how am I supposed to learn? So those are things that are gonna affect our youth mental health, right? As we're talking today.
Right. Well, even adults, right? Also,
Yeah.
so,
Oh, even the teachers and counselors and administrations that is in that facility as well. I don't want to go to work. I'm fearful. I'm scared for my life, right? Those are real fears. And for some people, those little fears, like going to the cash register, feels like the exact same thing as, am I going to get shot right now? Because you're living in that reptilian brain of survival. And that's
right.
what we call it in behavioral health. So yeah, those are some common things right now that we're seeing trend wise within our youth, and it's sad. It's sad to hear and it's sad to see, but it's true. So how can we help our youth be better prepared, right, or help them ease that fear? I don't know if we can ease it, but how do we get them to cope and try to help some
Yeah.
self-care strategies for that? That's a whole bigger and a whole other podcast for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. No, it's a lot. It's a lot. And yeah, they do feel those things sometimes. And you know, the interesting thing as I'm thinking and listening to you speak is these apply for adults also, what we're sharing
Yeah.
with you. So isolating yourself, risk taking behaviors, overwhelming fear, intense worries. The other things are, you know, literally this one makes a little bit more sense, but when things that aren't real,
Mm.
um, you know, sometimes a lot of episodes for young people that may end up being challenged by their mental health begin to show themselves when they are adolescents.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're hitting that high school stage and beginning of college stage. And so we have to pay attention to when they're believing that things aren't real. They're hearing, seeing things that are not real. The other thing is
Right.
like just changing moods when there's like this fluctuation from high to low lows. um, you know, those are kind of signs that, you know, maybe something's going on for that individual, maybe need to get checked, you know, check in on them. Maybe they need to go see the school counselor or psychiatrist, or, you know, go to your local community health facility and just get it checked out. Because the other thing is, you know, and I'm going to jump to one of these other ones is, you know, uh, using alcohol and drugs excessively. A lot of times, what young people are doing is they're self medicating
Right.
because one, they haven't been taught how to deal with these things. May it be, and this is a good test, right? If they're taught some skills on how to deal with maybe some things like overwhelming fear or how to come out of that isolation and use some tools or skills, um, then they might use those tools and skills and find out that that works and it helps. But then
Mm-hmm.
there are youth out there and even adults too who use those tools and skills and it doesn't work for them, so they need something a little bit more. And so a lot of times, without knowing what those tools and skills may be, and a lot of those tools and skills, just so y'all know, you don't necessarily always have to go to a therapist or a psychiatrist, psychologist to learn some of those. These
Right.
are not secrets. You know, breathing techniques or goal planning, or taking a walk, right?
Yeah. Right.
Eating better, drinking more water,
Mhm.
sleeping,
Mhm.
getting
Big
8 to
time.
maybe 12 hours of sleep, you know, depending upon what age you are, right? Because a lot of young people aren't sleeping that much, but using the drugs and alcohol excessively because they're self-medicating. They're trying not to feel what they probably need to feel in order to progress through life,
Right.
because they don't have the right tools and skills. So that, I mean, those are some things definitely to consider. Um, Changes in moods, I had talked about already. Significant weight loss is another thing, and then harming oneself.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Significant weight loss and weight gain too, as well.
Oh, that's true. That's right. Yeah, weight
Yeah.
gain also. So these are a lot of different things just to be mindful of. These are probably more on the spectrum of
It's time to
they're
get help.
leaning. Say again.
It's like it's time to get help, right? Like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, right. Yeah, a little bit further on that spectrum. But there are some, you know, just pay attention to your loved ones.
Yeah.
Check in on them. Check in on the youth around you. Check in on your good friends.
Yeah.
And you know, the other thing to share, and Z, you and I talked about this, is, you know, if sometimes you're not in the best place to help them,
Right.
that's okay too. What I mean is that when I say that, it's to say that if you're gonna do more harm than good, then maybe find somebody else. Say call somebody else and be like, hey man, can you go check on Zion for me, man? Because like, I love him, but I got a lot going on myself right now that I can't really process and probably be helpful. So
Right.
can you go check on him? It's about a team, having a team around an individual.
Yeah, I always say in my presentations when I'm talking about this type of stuff is like, it's not your job to save everybody. It's not your job, but it's your job to speak up to help that person, right?
Right.
Speak up and let somebody know because we can't help you if we don't know what's going on, right? And that's also for somebody that may be struggling with this list. Maybe they felt. I always give like a rule of thumb for these things. I'm like, if you felt 3 or more of these things, it's time to ask for help. If you
Yep.
felt one of these things for a long period of time, which is anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, it's time to ask for help, right? And I think a lot of youth and a lot of adults are ashamed to ask for help because it goes against culture, it goes against the family dynamics because anxiety and stress isn't
Religion.
real. But right, yeah, that as well. But it's like the strongest thing that somebody can do is ask for help and advocate for help. Like we're not isolated creatures. Humans beings weren't made to wander this life isolated. We are creatures that crave connection and socials. So we need to be able to advocate for ourselves because you're not alone. There's a lot of people that here in this world that want to help you. That's me and my dad included. That's why we do the work that we do. So if you are somebody that is struggling, if you know somebody that's struggling, don't feel like you're a snitch for telling the secret or whatever the
Right.
case may be, because you're not a snitch for saving somebody's life. You know, you're
Exactly.
not a
And,
snitch for
and the
saving
most thing
somebody's life.
important, I think another important thing to share is that, there are a lot of people who are sometimes by themselves and don't think people are seeing them.
Mm.
And so if you see somebody and you um, realize that they're maybe not connected to a source or a person or a system, maybe you can help them. There's nothing wrong with that, helping that individual. And so the other thing that you can do that's awesome that I can say our nation has done is created a hotline. That's the 988 hotline now. You know what? If you're having thoughts of suicide or even just feeling down, man, call 988. That's nationally. That's so dope. You know what I mean? That they got
Mhm.
like this number, three numbers,
Yeah.
388 that everybody can use and just call. Um, and that just got instituted recently
Right.
because of the challenges we're having as a nation, um, even before the pandemic, and then through the pandemic, and even now. So check out 988, share that, post it, let everybody know about it. They're there. They'll
Yeah.
refer you to services that you may need if in an area that you are, and it's a great resource. Great resource. So all those people across this nation. I don't know if you're listening overseas. I don't know who you call.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't know about that much,
Yeah,
but
I don't know about that one, but
we don't know. But hopefully you find somebody that can
all
maybe
right.
the
And
person
drop
finally
drop it in
does.
the chat. Drop it in the chat or let
Yeah.
us know so that maybe we can put it out there in the world, depending upon if again, if wherever you are, so we can let people know who they can contact in your area, and that'd be dope. So man, that's a lot of stuff right there.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's good. Again, letting people know that it's important. Let's
Definitely.
destigmatize it. I know it can be challenging and trying to figure this out from the Gen Zs to millennials to uh, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z. But hey, we all deserve to be here. We
Yeah.
all have a purpose, and we need to support each other no matter
I
what.
love that. I love that. And with that being said, man, I know that podcast was a little heavy, but let it marinate. You know what I'm saying? Have some reflection after this, and after you listen to this podcast, take care of yourself. Do something you love today. Whether you take 15 minutes of whatever that is for you, that's positive and that's healthy. Do that today for yourself because after listening to this, I know there's some thoughts that are running through your head, and you're like, oh my gosh, that was so heavy. But do something that you love today, and come back to the next episode next week where we have a different topic. If you haven't done so already, you can subscribe to us on YouTube at the Up to It Podcast. You can go ahead and follow and subscribe to us or download the podcast at Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. We're there. We're on there. So let us know. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Let us know how you're feeling about episode 1 so far, season 1 so far. This is episode 7 in season 1. We're about to wrap up season 1, and we're excited for that. We can't wait to give you season 2. We count our chickens before they hatch a little bit sometimes, but it's because it's all in good fun and good and excitement. But if you want to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook at the Up to It Podcast, we're always going to be there. You can talk to me. You talk to me and my pop. If you are somebody that wants to get in contact with us and like, you know what, I want to share my story, or I think I have something to contribute to this podcast, you can email us at jamalandzion@gmail.com. We'll be more than happy to respond to those and be able to maybe coordinate something for you to get on the show. But with that being said, man, you have anything else you want to leave them with, Pop?
Hey, do your thing and be safe.
There we go. And we're going to get up out of here, y'all. We'll see y'all on the next episode. Peace.